they need better quarterback play. It was interesting to me. Nick Sirianni said pre-practice yesterday, "Oh, everything's fine, everything's great. We're lining up right, all the technical, the spacing's right." Um, he did admit there's too many turnovers, so I do give him credit for that. And he went into pretty in detail about what Jalen was doing wrong on his particular interceptions, but um, he's not worried, and maybe he shouldn't be worried because I haven't even put on the pads, and that'll happen today.
And a good morning to Eagle fans. Apologize for a couple of minutes late, some technical difficulties. But we're up and running, and we're glad you're streaming in with us. It is Birds 365. You got Jody McDonald, Ric Serritella co-hosting today because, as you should know by now, my usual partner, John McMullen, is off to Eagles practice in mere minutes from now. But we're going to milk him for every piece of information we can for the next 25 minutes before you let him get out the door. Johnny Mac, a more inclusive day of practice because they actually had quasi pads on yesterday, shells yesterday.
Yeah, we went with
actual
shells.
Football? Are you kidding me?
Nah.
The Eagles are actually playing football. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Today is full pads.
Ooh.
Official full pads. Today we're cosplaying football, as I like to call it. So we're getting closer. But yeah, it's a little bit more important when the pads come on. I think you see that in Kansas City with Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown's like, I'm not going to come in until the pads come on. Then he says, all right, this is a little bit more important. Let's get it. So it's more important when the pads finally come on. And I think it'll be really important, as I said, for this offense, because the strength of this offense is clearly the offensive line. And when they have those big guys have those pads on, it's a little bit more difficult to do some damage from the defensive standpoint.
Yeah, it's hot, it's humid, it's August, the pads are on, and we got our first taste, or you got your first taste of some one-on-ones from what I hear, John. And O-line, we got to give the offensive line a little credit because we've stated how the defense has been ahead of the offense.
Yeah.
However, outside of my guy, Jordan Davis, who I'm sure we'll get to in a minute, the offensive line sounds like they really won the majority of those one-on-one reps against the defensive line, most notably Cam Jurgens, who stonewalled both Jordan Davis and Javon Hargrove, looking pretty good, that rookie.
Yeah, Cam has looked a little bit more advanced than I was expecting, especially against that defensive line. So it is, Jeff Stoutland hates one-on-ones because it's designed. We talk about there's certain drills, 7-on-7s. The offense should do well in those. One-on-one pass rushing drills, the defense should do well in those. It's really difficult for the offensive line. And for the most part, the guys you would expect, Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, they did very well. Cam Jurgens, though, yeah, he did a really nice job. And you can tell he's undersized, but he's really strong. He's sort of that country strong. And yeah, to beat Jordan Davis, man, I got to tell you, it just looks weird seeing him in the middle of the line. I've never seen anybody that big playing defensive tackle. It's like Jordan Mailata playing defensive tackle almost. Jordan's got about 2 inches on him, but he's so big. They were on the far side of the field, so we had to get up into the sort of makeshift stands at the NovaCare complex. And to see that side of the field, Jordan Davis lined up at nose tackle. You can't even see Jason Kelsey on the other side. It's completely blocked out. It's like an eclipse.
Yeah, he is a big dude. And yesterday he got some good reps in and got praise for the way that he played, which means he didn't get to the quarterback. Apparently, Mr. Hurts had maybe his best day of camp so far. At least his connection percentage was bigger than it had been other days. Might not have thrown the ball downfield much, but he did throw it over the middle a lot, John. You and I have talked about the quote-unquote spray chart that they use for quarterbacks to show where the ball's going and where the ball's being caught or defended. And last year, Jalen Hurts did not venture over the middle of the field much at all. He threw percentage-wise more outside than maybe any other quarterback in the National Football League. Was it a point of emphasis? Is that going to be what this camp is going to be about, to make sure that Jalen Hurts gets comfortable throwing the ball over the middle and isn't going to be shy about doing it?
I don't know if that's what this camp is about, but I mean, there's no reason for him to not be comfortable throwing the football in the middle of the field if he's confident in himself, because you have those two big targets, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. In theory, they should be able to dominate the middle of the field. But in the past, the quarterback just hasn't been competent to do it. Now, you add A.J. to the mix. That was probably the biggest play passing-wise of the offense, is hit AJ over the middle, and the best part was he hit him in stride. So the strength of AJ Brown is he sort of becomes a running back after the catch. He's really difficult to take down. So if you put the ball where you're supposed to put the ball, give him an opportunity to not reach, to not slow down, it's going to be really, really effective. So yeah, I know. I think the last 2 days of practices before Monday were so bad offensively. Everyone said, this is pretty good. I use the word nondescript because they didn't throw the ball at all, as you mentioned, Jody, down the field. The one time they tried, it was a miss. AJ had a little bit of separation on James Bradbury, but it was sort of for the outside shoulder, so you had to throw it over the shoulder, and it wasn't close. And then there was one other sort of deep ball that was incomplete as well. So everything was underneath. And look, if you're an NFL quarterback, you should make those connections. So I think it was nondescript. But nondescript is better than it was where it was before. So that is a positive.
Yeah, I think it's about timing, touch, and accuracy, right? Those are the areas where Jalen Hurts is going to win. He's not this guy that's going to roll out to the right hash mark and, zip a opposite, left hash mark out route, and squeeze it through tight windows. And I think what you're referring to, Jody, I actually saw the stat yesterday. Our good friends at Football Outsider said 10% of Jalen Hurts passes were over the middle.
Yeah.
I think it was the worst in the league.
Yeah.
Just to give you a ballpark, the NFL average is like 22%. And I think that does come with confidence, because let's be honest, when you run those cross routes, when you're throwing down the middle of the field, those windows get a little bit smaller, right? And you've got to have the confidence to.
Bad things can happen if you miss in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Then you have the tip drill, and then bang, it's coming the other way. So, if you don't have confidence in your accuracy, maybe you want to stay away from those high traffic areas, which I think is what was going on. But when you have Dallas Goedert and AJ Brown, I mean, those are two big bodies, two big targets over the middle. They can use their bodies to seal defenders. There's no reason to not show confidence in those two particular players, specifically over the middle. And we'll see how it shakes out. That reminds me of something, though. All of a sudden, one of my biggest concerns about this offense is there's no Devontae Smith. He's like, they don't throw the ball to him. Now, obviously it's the 5th day of camp, but it's all A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert in the passing game. I mean, and everybody else is getting sort of the run of the litter, getting the scraps at the bowl at the very end. And I'm like, hey, for the Quez Watkins of the world, Jalen Reagor's, great. I don't care. But Devontae Smith is a good player. Devontae Smith has got to get more involved. Hopefully they see the first 4 or 5 games and start designing more plays for him as they continue with this offensive install, because this is not an offense that's going to go progression 1, progression 2, progression 3. It's going to be, you're going to have a priority receiver, then maybe a second, and then go. So if you're not designing plays for Devontae Smith, you got to design plays for Devontae Smith. That's not a good sign to me.
John, at least what's been reported, I know you reported, others did as well. Part of the problem with the Eagle offense is the Eagle cornerbacks have just been playing that well. They've been defending passes and playing physical against the Eagle wide receivers, Devontae Smith, the underused Devontae Smith being one of them. How good have the corners looked? I know we all concentrate on offense, worry about offense, want to know exactly why the offense isn't moving the ball. How much credit should the defense be getting?
Yeah, a lot. I mentioned this with Tone on football 24/7. I'm like, part of me is like, okay, is this a chicken and an egg thing? Like, is this bad offense, great defense, vice versa? Is it somewhere in between? It's usually somewhere in between, but the corners have been great. The starting corners, and I include Avonte Maddox in that as well, with the nickel corner. And this, trio of cornerbacks, if they stay healthy, is going to be a big strength of this particular team. I don't think there's any doubt about that. We all know what Slay can do. This is Bradbury's first year here, but he's looked tremendous early in camp. You can tell he's just a pro. He knows how to play. He knows what to do. He's just really smart, really savvy player. And then Avonte Maddox is, he's getting better and better because he's always had the athleticism to play in the slot, but he's getting smarter about it. And the other day he baited Jalen Hurts into an interception. So, that's the kind of stuff that Slay does when he baits quarterbacks. That's the kind of stuff that really top tier cornerbacks do. So that was a really positive sign for Avonte Maddox. Those three corners, and remember, I always say, Avonte's a starter, not the third linebacker. Avonte's a starter. So that's the best trio of cornerbacks they've had in a very long time around here.
Yeah, I think Slay, you mentioned Slay. He had a batted ball, I think, versus Minshew, and Marcus Epps came out with the interception, and then Sean Bradley with another pick off from Minshew. Did the Eagles defense just have Gardner Minshew's number here?
Yeah, Gardner did not have a good day yesterday, and to be honest, he hasn't had a good camp. So none of the quarterbacks have had a good camp, to be honest, unless you're Reed Sinnett, who's been Reed Sinnett. And by that, by no means am I trying to say he's been the best quarterback. He's been what you expect as a third string developmental quarterback. Jalen Hurts has not played well. Gardner Minshew has not played well. Carson Strong has been just completely overmatched early in camp. The only one who's doing what he's supposed to do as a third string quarterback is kind of Reed Sinnett. So that has not been a positive. And Gardner's part of it. Had two picks yesterday. Sean Bradley got him. And as you mentioned, the Slay PBU turns into a tip drill. I talked about the middle of the field, and Marcus Epps is there. And Marcus has played tremendous as well early in camp. So, yeah, I mean, they need better quarterback play. It was interesting to me. Nick Sirianni said pre-practice yesterday, oh, everything's fine. Everything's great. We're lining up right. All the technical, the spacing's right. He did admit there's too many turnovers, so I do give him credit for that. And he went into pretty in detail about what Jalen was doing wrong on his particular interceptions. But he's not worried. And, maybe he shouldn't be worried because they haven't even put on the pads, and that'll happen today.
Johnny Mac, a couple of Eagle players have already taken exception to media reporting about these first handful of practices. We touched on Miles Sanders yesterday. I don't think that any of you guys, and I know Elliot Parks because I talked to him firsthand after the Eagle practice on Friday, did anything wrong by noting that Miles ran with the second unit. Didn't mean he was going to run with the second unit only. Didn't mean his job was in jeopardy with the Philadelphia Eagles. He just ran with the second unit. It was worth noting. And Miles got his nose bent out of shape. And yesterday, Jalen Reagor responding to a tweet by John Clark, which was, I trust John Clark, and you can confirm what he said was accurate about the way that Jalen played and was playing. He comes out with a not for rebroadcast tweet in response. What's the deal here? A little thin skin from the Philadelphia Eagles with kind of, you only get so much scrutiny. You guys are only there so long. My God, how can you dare report on what's going on?
Modern player, some guys get it, some guys don't. I mean, with Jalen, it's been this way for a while. Jalen should just delete social media. I advocated that. I mean, look, I advocate all players don't go near social media because there's going to be some toxic stuff. And where you're getting upset about somebody describing a play, or in Elliot's case, he took second team reps. It's factual and nobody denies it. And even the head coach said, yeah, we rotate. He was in with the second team. Doesn't mean he's not a starter. He is the starter. And, guys get upset. There are other guys, Jalen Hurts, who doesn't get upset at all about that kind of stuff. Jason Kelsey, he'll talk about it. He'll give the big speeches behind the scenes, but he understands what it is. Modern player is all I can say. It's unbelievable that those are not deep cutting criticisms. I mean, he's taking second team. I joked Elliot yesterday. He should say, not bad for a second team running back. Miles ran for a touchdown. You should tweet out, not bad for a second team running back and see what happens. But that wouldn't have went over well.
No.
Jalen Reagor, he's gone through a lot. And that's why he should just delete that thing and stay away from it.
Yeah, but John, I mean, if he's responding to that kind of criticism out there, you don't just, maybe he logged on Twitter and came across it, but to me, it's in his head because he's searching for it now. He's out there.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the problem. And that's why I said, and clearly it was deleted. Now, Jalen Reagor's blocked most of us anyway by this point.
But he kept Johnny Clark.
Yeah. And there's a few he kept. And that's why Johnson's the nicest guy in the world. That's probably why. I mean, okay. I forget the exact tweet. It was something about dropping or juggling the ball, but all right, who cares? That's what we're there for. I'm not a big fan of Twitter play-by-play during practice. I don't think it's meaningful. I think people get too upset about it, or too excited about it from a fan's perspective and from a player's perspective. It is about, half of the time. I remember when Andy and Doug were here, and Doug specifically, they would have 20-20-20 practices, which are different types of practices designed to, offense servicing the defense, vice versa. And, a bunch of reporters would come in from Allentown, on a day pass or somewhere at Reading or somewhere, and they don't know. And they're looking at the offense throwing interceptions saying, oh, that's a horrible throw. And so the Eagles would actually put out a sort of explanation. This is a 20-20-20 practice. The offense is not trying to succeed. You don't know what they're trying to accomplish. So I'm not a big fan of play-by-play. That's a long-winded way of saying that. But so what, man? You're an NFL player. You're going to face criticism. And the fact that those guys got upset about that is not a good sign, to be honest. Now, in Miles' case, maybe, sorry, Jody. In Miles' case, maybe he uses that as a chip on his shoulder. With Jalen, I think we're too far down the road. He takes this up, and we all predicted when we saw it, it'll be deleted within an hour. It was deleted within, 2 hours at least.
And you're right. At least Miles, to this point, has used it as motivation because, according to you guys, he's looked as good as anyone else on the offensive side of the ball so far. Do want to ask about one specific play, and this is really getting narrow focused. Jalen Hurts rolled left, tried to throw across his body, got picked off. Was not a pretty play at all, and there's been a lot of talk about the fact that when Jalen goes left, that's what you want to do if you're a defense, force him left, kind of like a basketball player, make him go left. Do that with Jalen Hurts. You got
that's
a better
what Tampa
chance.
Bay did. Tampa
did a great job of it in the playoff game they had last year. And maybe this is, I got to take my eagle-colored glasses off. Could that have been Jalen just working on it? That he knows it's not a strength, and he knows at some point during the year he's probably going to have to make a play going to his left. I harken back to baseball spring training stuff where a pitcher will throw 7 straight curveballs. You'd never throw 7 straight curveballs in a real game, but if you're working on your curveball, then you're going to throw 7 straight curveballs. You don't care how many get smacked around. Was that it, or was that just natural reaction? The pocket pushed that way. He went that way. He still can't do it. We're screwed. Was there any chance that was by design, that they wanted to give Jalen a chance to show that he's better at it this year?
It was definitely the pocket breaking down. He just happened to get flush left. And that was one of the plays Nick talked about specifically and called it a bad decision. And they were hoping he would dump it down to, I think it was Miles, might have been Boston, but and instead he tried to throw it over the middle of the field, and what happened. They weren't. They're hopeful that once he gets flushed out of the pocket, that he would make the good decision. And look, he's going to have to prove that because everybody's got the blueprint. We always say this is a copycat league. It is a copycat league, but it's a very, very slow moving copycat league. And, opposing defensive coordinators really don't get to this kind of stuff until the off season. Now everybody has that Tampa Bay tape. They saw what they did. It was very, very effective. And teams are going to try to make sure that when Jalen Hurts escapes the pocket, it's to the left and not the right. And he's going to have to get better at it. And sometimes just getting better at it is throwing the damn football in the ground, throwing it away, just not making the negative play and living to see the next down. In that situation, it was a third down drill. So he's trying to convert the first down. And Nick said, you know what? If it's 4th and 1, maybe we'll go for it on 4th and 1. Do what you're supposed to do. Make the good decision. Don't try to reach because of the situation. So it was a bad play. No, they weren't trying to work on anything. And Nick was pretty honest about it. It was a bad decision. It was a bad play.
John, going back to a couple of offensive players here that are injured, Zach Pascal hasn't practiced yet. That must have been some pretty bad food poisoning. He's missed his 4th straight practice. Has that opened up the door for any receivers to take an opportunity?
Well, nobody gets it, Rick, except AJ and Dallas. No. I would say Deion Kane is the best of the second-tier receivers by pretty wide margin. But, yeah, I mean, Quez is number 3. Jalen's going to be here if they can't trade him. And then you start talking about, all right, where does it go from there? Is Britton Covey going to make the team as a returner? I think all of that is tied into Jalen Reagor. If Jalen's here, he's going to be the returner. But yeah, they don't throw the football to anybody but AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert to date. So they don't even throw it to Devontae Smith. So I wouldn't be too concerned about Greg Ward versus Britton Covey or whoever you want to throw into that mix.
Yesterday here on the show, Johnny Mac did the same thing, had to run out to practice. But as we were speaking, he saw on social media that the decision had been made in the Deshaun Watson case a little earlier than was expected. It was supposed to be 9 o'clock, but the announcement came out at 8:20 something. The Sue Robinson had given 6 games to Deshaun Watson. Now we know the NFL and the NFLPA, but the NFLPA is on record saying, and they got ahead of the curve and said, we will accept whatever decision Sue Robinson comes down with, which was smart on their part. So now it basically comes down to the NFL. Will they appeal the suspension? If they do, then the appeal is heard by Roger Goodell, which basically means he can set the punishment at whatever level he wants. 3 days from when it was announced was yesterday, so now down to 2 days. Johnny, give me your best guess time frame. When and how do we hear from the NFL as to what the actual suspension will be? Will they let the Robinson 6-game decision stand up? Will they add to it? How and when is this going to shake out coming out of the commissioner's office?
I think they got their finger up in the air and they're gauging public reaction, which is not good. Which, I've been pretty good on predictions here. I predicted 6 games because I thought Sue Robinson would rely on previous precedent, Ezekiel Elliott, Ben Roethlisberger. I thought that's where she would land. I thought the reaction would be awful. It's turning out to be awful. I thought people would immediately go to Calvin Ridley. They immediately went to Calvin Ridley. How could you suspend somebody for a year for gambling and you can't suspend somebody with 24 sexual misconduct allegations? There's so much nuance to this decision, and it's difficult to educate the fan base on it. I mean, I've been trying to do it for years, the difference between the personal conduct policy, the PED policy, the gambling policy. There's structured penalties. People went back to marijuana when they suspended people for marijuana. There were structured penalties for those types of things. And PD, personal conduct's open-ended, so it makes it more difficult. But that's really, really tough to explain to people. It's impossible. In fact, nobody's getting down in the weeds with that. They just aren't. So the league looks terrible. I mean, first of all, you hear that number, 20, some people say 24, 22. I think Sue Robinson was dealing with 4 different cases.
Right, only 4.
4. So throw that 22, 24 out the window, but you constantly hear it. She was dealing with 4 different cases. She made the decision she made. I thought it was predictable. Now it comes down to what the NFL wants to do. The reason they set up this process, because to be honest, they wanted no part of it. But, they're going to get blamed for it. The NFL, you're already hearing it. The NFL won't suspend a player for sexual misconduct, but they'll suspend somebody for gambling or weed or blah, blah, blah. You're already hearing these narratives. And it bothers me most, to be honest, with people who should know better, people who cover the league. They should know better. Now, I get it that fans don't know the CBA. It's boring. It's arcane. It's complicated. But people who cover the league should know better. I think she did her job. I think it should stand. And if the NFL wants to change it, and this is just my personal opinion, they should negotiate it and structure it. And then they can change it. But the problem here is, and as she kind of said, is you can't just make up new rules as you go along. And that's what the NFL has done for too long. All right,
but I'm going to play Roger Goodell here for a second. Yeah, they can.
Well, yeah, they can.
They agreed to it in collective bargaining that we would have an independent judge give an opinion, because that's all it is, an opinion. But then there's the appeals process, and we know how the appeal process goes. It goes right back to the commissioner.
Well, so what I should have said, you're right,
because
Jody.
They collectively bargained the fact that he can do it.
You're 100% right. What I should have said is you shouldn't do that. In other words, if you're going to ask, people like me, and I'm Sue Robinson as an arbiter, as a former judge, to do this type of thing, we're going to do it in a way where we adhere to how you did things in the past, basically, previous precedent. And we're going to look at what you've done, and we're going to try to be as fair and impartial as possible. Now, because the general public is more upset about this than something in the past or this, that's the reason you do it. That's the reason you try to be set up everything to be as fair and impartial as possible. So you're right, Jody. They can do whatever they want because they collectively bargained it, and they're going to win in court, even if it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. We talked about this yesterday. Ultimately, they're going to win. They're going to have the same problem now. They're going to have the same problem. So either they want to correct the problem or they don't want to correct the problem. If they don't want to correct the problem and they're just worried about the general public sentiment, yeah, they're just going to appeal it and put any suspension they want.
Right,
if they want to correct the problem, they'll correct the problem.
Let me ask you one more question before we let you run. And I'm playing kind of devil's advocate here. The precedent is set that Sue Robinson attempted to make her decision using precedent. There was no precedent before this. There had never been a case like this. And as soon as you have a somewhat similar case, well, then you change the focus. If there is a pretty darn exact previous decision made on a specific action, then it's easy. Yeah, you should stick to precedent. But we've never had a player accused of 24, 26 cases of nonviolent sexual assault.
But again, she wasn't dealing with the 24 cases.
All right, then just 4. We've never had any player accused of 4 nonviolent sexual assaults. And so
she used that
how
term.
do you use precedent?
But because from a judge's perspective, the precedent is what they described as nonviolent sexual offenses. Is what the NFL. So you're never going to have Ben Roethlisberger accusation of being in a bathroom. You're never going to have the exact same accusation. That's not what they're saying by precedent. They're saying by precedent. She's saying by precedent nonviolent, which is a goopy way of describing it. Number one, but that's the way the league described it. Ezekiel Elliott, same way. You're not going to have that exact same circumstance of what Ezekiel Elliott did, or Adrian Peterson, or Jameis Winston. You're never going to have the exact same incident. Every incident's going to be different. The precedent part is the nonviolent sexual offense part, and that's what she was ruling on. And the fact that, you can't just wake up one day and say, oh, people are taking this worse than they took this, and say, we want to make it this. And that's sort of what it came down to.
J-Mac, no, you got to run. Got to get to practice. What coach you hearing from today?
Shane Steichen, the play caller, baby. The play caller.
All right.
Get the ball to Devontae Smith. Let's get so maybe there'll be a question.
You know, that'll be Johnny Mac's first question. Is Devontae Smith still on the roster, Shane? Because it doesn't look like you're calling his number much here in practice. J-Mac will be back with us again tomorrow. Safe travels over to Philly. John McMullen here with us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.